demons, creepy teens, and a guy whose hobby is making these really creepy masks. CURON is the latest supernatural show from Netflix Europe, joining the likes of Aris, Ragnarok, and my personal favorite, Dark. So in this video, we'll be taking a look at the mystery surrounding the Curse of CURON, how the supernatural entity works, and why I think this is one of the darkest TV endings ever. And if you want to skip right to that, I've left a link in the description. But before we begin, please take a second to like and subscribe with the bell on, because here we go. A creepy bell tower submerged by water is a great setting for a horror show, and it's this tower where the legendary Curse of CURON stems. The town of CURON used to belong to Austria. That's why you have families like the Aspers who sometimes speak German to one another. But the town eventually came under Italian control, causing friction between the families who lived there, most of whom were Austrian. In fact, a 2011 census stated that 97% of the population of CURON speaks German. To make matters worse, an Italian family by the name of Renes decided to flood the town to make way for the construction of a hydroelectric dam. This caused an even greater divide between members of the town, resulting in the Curse of CURON. According to the legend, in retaliation for flooding the town, the spirits of the dead come back to haunt the townsfolk for allowing this to happen, and the Renes family are the ones to blame. Until every member of their family is dead, the curse will remain. It's said that when you hear the bell of the submerged clock tower, you're the next one to die, which makes it even more interesting that the first thing we hear in the show in episode 1 is a bell tower chiming. As we find out through the season, the curse is very much real. The lake creates a copy of a townsperson to fully take over their lives, but it doesn't just take anybody. It takes someone whose life is being repressed in one way or another.
Perché vuole fare la vita che tu non hai voluto farle vivere.
In episode 5, Thomas explains that man is created in two parts, ourselves and a shadow. Normally these two parts live peacefully side by side, but sometimes one tries to overpower the other, which causes its victim to hear the bells of the church tower. These copies will stop at nothing to fully take over their subjects' lives, to bring balance to whomever's life they've come for. For example, Lucas is depicted as a wimp. He's constantly bullied and doesn't even have the courage to defeat his clone when it attacks. The clone, however, is a badass who takes matters into his own hands and isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. Each of these clones are trying to fix something missing from their copies' lives, even if that means killing to do so. As we later find out, these copies can be killed, but they simply re-emerge from the lake brand new if that happens. This is why Thomas kept a clone copy of Anna in his attic for 17 years. He knew this copy, if left unattended, would search relentlessly for the real Annie if he didn't do something, so he kept it chained away.
Di riuscire a controllarla e a domesticarla, come ho fatto con lui.
The perfect encapsulation of this is the wolf Thomas has chained outside his hotel. He thinks these copies can be, quote, domesticated. And as we learn through the character of Albert, yes, these clones can completely take over the lives of their victims. As a teen, Albert was in love with Anna, but Anna wanted to be free, leave CURON, and move away. She even cheated on him with a man we'll later find is Petro. She says she's pregnant and that Albert is not the father. But what if Anna was lying about this? What if Albert was the real father? I actually thought this would tie into a huge reveal at the end of the season, but that didn't happen. That would mean that Daria and Mauro are Albert's kids, making them half siblings with Mickey and Giulio. And if you've seen the entire season, that would mean Daria and Giulio hooking up would mean some serious incest. After getting dumped, a young Clara takes Albert out on the lake to console him. She's in love with him, but Albert's heart belongs to Anna. Suddenly, Albert is attacked by his copy, resulting in his death, and the new Albert takes over. A copy who doesn't care if he makes out with Clara, something the real Albert would never have done. Eventually they'll marry and have two kids, Mickey and Giulio. Clara keeps it a secret because she finally gets what she always wanted, to be with Albert, even if it's all a lie. Later in the season, when Clara is confronted by a copy of herself, she doesn't fight it. She knows her life has been one big lie. Her romance with Albert was never real. She'd rather be dead than live with this lie. Onward to the beginning of the last episode, titled The Maze. This is a reference to the series of tunnels and bunkers constructed by the Italians during World War II in the event of an invasion. invasion. The characters often refer to it affectionately as the Plains of the Dead. The real Anna has been held captive by her copy, and conveniently there's a piece of wire she uses to escape. In an ironic twist, Thomas last episode was held captive in the same attic he held Anna's copy, and he's put in there with the wolf. He's able to fight it off and sets it free. The kids, who are composed of Daria, Moro, Mickey, and Giulio, travel up the mountain in search of their parents. Thomas and clone Clara team up as well in search of the kids who they know will be in danger from Albert. And Albert is continuing his love affair with Anna. What these two don't realize yet is their love is a lie too. The real Albert fell in love with the real Anna, but these two are both copies. They're not the same people. This will come into play a bit later. Meanwhile, the kids find the entrance to the tunnels and uncover a pile of bones. They believe it could belong to Italian soldiers who were defending the tunnels, but as we learn, the Nazis never ended up invading, so why are there dead bodies? It's almost as if the writers were like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if they stumbled upon some bones, but they never explain it. While coming up the side of the mountain, Thomas and Clara uncover the bodies of Lucas and Berger, who were killed last episode. Berger was Thomas's best and only real friend in Curon, and this Lucas was the evil clone of the real one, which begs the question, can a clone come back if its original has already been killed? This is never really explored in the show, but I think not. A copy can't be created without an original, so Lucas is now likely gone for good. The Albert and Anna clones find out that the real Anna has escaped. Remember how I said that their love is a lie since they're both clones? Well, here is where we learn why. The Anna clone wanted to kill the original right away, but at the orders of Albert had held her captive in the tunnels so she would starve. Anna accuses Albert that this was his plan all along, that he never wanted to kill Anna because that's the real woman he fell in love with. Clone Anna bashes her head into the wall in an attempt to trick the kids into thinking she was the one held captive, and the kids are really dumb and get split up in the creepy World War II tunnels where they just saw a bunch of human bones. Daria and Moro find the two Annas separately, but then the question remains, who is the real Anna? And this is where this series goes extremely dark. So dark, in fact, that this has to be one of the saddest, most tragic endings I've ever seen. In the season's climax, Daria and Moro have to figure out which of their mothers is the real one, and to make matters worse, Albert appears aiming his gun. Albert has realized that neither one of the Annas are his Anna. The clone Anna is simply that, a clone, and the real Anna he never fell in love with because he's a clone himself. It was the original version of him that fell in love with that Anna. The two Annas fight each other, and Albert ends up shooting both of them. And to make things even more twisted, he shoots himself in front of his own kids. So right off the bat, we have a double murder-suicide in front of some kids, but it gets even worse. One of the Annas survives and escapes. As we'll find out, this is Anna's clone, but her escape is short-lived as Moro tracks her down and holds her at gunpoint. She tries to explain herself that the real Anna was weak and couldn't protect them from their abusive father. Earlier in the season, we learned that Moro's hearing loss was caused by his father when he pushed young Moro, causing him to bonk his head and lose part of his hearing. Anna's clone was simply a protector. That's why she killed their father in cold blood. Anna ends up falling over the edge of the cliff, plummeting to her death as her family watches on. And that's just part of what makes this ending so dark. First, we have Daria and Moro lose both of their parents, even witnessing the death of their mother in person. Mickey and Giulio watch as their father murders the Annas, then takes his own life in front of them. Clara later shows them the grave of the real Albert, and the kids find out that their father was one of these evil copies their entire life. Not to mention their real mother is dead, and they're left with this copy of their mom. If that isn't enough, a character by the name of Ober brings Lucas's dead body to his father. Ober isn't given much screen time throughout the season, but he's part of this rival family that once held control over Curon. But when Curon was part of Austria, his family held sway, so he's got some personal vendetta against the Renas. He says that the lake has awoken once again, and that the Renas must be destroyed. Mickey and Daria start to hear the sounds of the bell tower, meaning copies of themselves are on their way. But since the lake is frozen, the copies are trapped. Even though they're copies, it's still terrifying to watch as they pound on the ice, gasping for air. But if there's a season 2, it's most likely that these copies will find their way out from the frozen lake. Curon is a deeply tragic series, with almost all all of its characters losing the most important people in their lives. Even Thomas loses his best friend and daughter. But more tragic is that I personally didn't feel connected to any of the characters, and at times the writing feels contrived and forced in order to make the plot work. Most of the twists are predictable in the show, and there weren't any major holy shit moments that define many of these types of shows. But if you're desperate to have something to tide you over until the new season of Dark comes out, give this one a try. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't done so already, please make sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.